Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have been sensationally banned from joining King Charles and the British royals for their traditional Christmas celebrations. According to reports, as the regal clan gather for the festive season, Charles and Prince William have decided that they cannot trust the Sussexes not to leak intimate details to the media. Naturally, their Montecito Majesties are desperately spinning the fraught situation, insisting that all is well in their picture-perfect lives and Thanksgiving is all about family. Their family, perhaps, but not, it would seem, Harry's family or Meghan's family. In a new fawning interview with Marie Claire magazine, the Duchess waxes lyrical about the Afghan women she shared a meal with who are separated from their loved ones. She seems less concerned about being separated from her own father, Thomas, who, a sick man at 80, is begging to meet his grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet, for the very first time. Before it's too late. If only his difficult daughter would let him. Nor does Meg appear particularly troubled by her rancid estrangement from her half-brother and sister, Thomas Markle Jr. and Samantha, which just got worse after Samantha reignited her legal battle, alleging that her famous sibling libelled her by unfairly suggesting she was part of a hate group trolling her on social media. Despite this firestorm of familial dysfunction, the Duchess gushes, "I love the holidays. Being close to my mom is great. I think you always have to make sure there's room at the table for your friends who don't have family, which is really key. I'm sorry, but painting this pretty portrait of happy harmony is ludicrous. Is Meghan kidding herself? Because she sure as hell isn't kidding anyone else. She's so theatrically caring and sharing about people she doesn't know from faraway countries, but shockingly callous about the people who should be her nearest and dearest. And as for the indecipherable West Coast psychobabble she specialises in, sometimes I wonder if she's even speaking the same language. Example, okay, how do you make this a much larger vision so it's not just a short-term banding on a problem, but a long-term solution? Excuse me, Meg, would you mind repeating that in English? But no amount of New Age gobbledygook can explain why the gruesome twosome are spending so much time apart these days, unless the explanation is that their 6-year marriage is heading to hell in a handcart, hurtling in the same deadbeat direction as Meghan's strikingly stagnant lifestyle site, American Riviera Orchard. Mealtime with the Afghan ladies was yet another of the Duchess's increasingly frequent Lone Star engagements, while her husband was conspicuous by his absence. Not so long ago, Meghan declared that she and Harry were like salt and pepper, an inseparable double act. Now, they're more like chalk and cheese. They don't go together, which, for a husband and wife with 2 kids, is not ideal. As is so often the case nowadays, next week the disparate duo will be thousands of miles apart, making pointedly solo appearances. After the latest of his numerous planet-destroying jet-setting journeys, the oh-so-green Duke will be in Manhattan to attend a New York Times book conference. Maybe the renowned royal intellectual might even read one. Meanwhile, back in California, the Duchess is due at some dreary Hollywood Awards bash where her billionaire producer pal Tyler Perry will be saluted for his, and I quote, landmark achievements in the media. Apparently, he's a visionary icon. Aren't we all? The Sussex spin machine maintains that never being seen with each other is all part of a new media strategy to improve Harry and Meghan's plummeting popularity ratings. But is this true? Or is it to cover up the truth about a marriage that has hit the rocks? That is the question.
Well, we have heard some nice news from the Princess of Wales this week, and she's given a message ahead of her carol concert next week. And she's expected to appear at that, right?
Absolutely. She's and expected to appear at part of the state visit from the Emir of Qatar, which I think is on Tuesday. But the carol concert at Westminster Abbey, big thing, a huge number of attendees, is on December the 6th. It then gets broadcast on Christmas Eve on ITV. So it's now very much part of the Prince and Princess of Wales's sort of Christmas build-up, and particularly the Princess of Wales, who very much part of the organising. And we know that they're going to have, well, Chris Hoy is going to be there. There's going to be other people from some of the people involved in the Southport incident, you know, awful scenes in Southport. They will be attending. And obviously, Prince of Wales, I think, is going to be doing a reading. There are various people will be singing. So it's a great sort of Christmas occasion in terms of what the Prince and Princess of Wales doing. And what she wants to do is it's a way of her thanking. And this letter that's come out, it does suggest that this has been if you sort of read between the lines, you feel that this has been a really difficult year for her, and that you know, the word love is something that is mentioned, I think, 11 times in the letter. You get a feeling that she's needed a lot of love this year to help her through.
Yes, love, not fear, she says, the importance of it, how much we need each other in spite of our differences. Love is the light that can shine bright even in our darkest times. And the meaning of Christmas to her is, above all else, encouraging us to turn to love, not fear. She also praises those who care for others, saying gentle words or a receptive ear, an arm around an exhausted shoulder, or silently being by someone's side. She also says that Christmas is a time to slow down and reflect on the deeper things that connect us all, and to live our lives with an open heart. I mean, is that seems quite deep, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that she's needed that love and people who cared for her and helped her, and she's wanted that. Remember, it's now about it was just after Christmas, and of course we got news that she was ill. So it's coming up to a sort of year anniversary. So Christmas, you know, when we last saw her in a sort of on Christmas Day, she had all the children around her. It then obviously transpired over the next couple of weeks or so that she became ill. And since then, it's been a long road back and through that time. And you get a sense that she has needed all the help. And this letter just is a general, excuse me, a reflection of what she's felt, but more importantly, what she's learned, feels it's a general life lesson. And the sentiments of the letter are very, very apt for this time of year, a very Christmas Christian message.
And without wanting to go into the actual details of her illness, of which we know very little other than obviously it was treatment for some form of cancer. Some reports have said precancerous cells, some reports have said it was more serious. But I think in general, perhaps we haven't been aware of quite how ill she's been. I get that impression from the words, from the fact that we haven't seen much of her. I think that perhaps we have been, and I don't know this for a fact, I'm not saying this because I know of anything, I'm just saying it as someone who is an onlooker. It feels to me like we have been perhaps protected from quite how ill she's been, which of course makes her road to recovery, and the fact that she is now appearing at things such a nicer piece of news.
Yeah, and it's very much a controlled environment that she's coming back in. And then when we look at the King, he's had a much more public-facing roles, even going through his cancer treatment. It's been obviously easier to manage, and the King wants to be out there as much as he can. And you have to say fair play to him, and he's doing as much as he can that the doctors will allow him to. It doesn't seem recently that he's slowed down much. But in the Princess of Wales's case, it is a much more complicated scenario. I, again, like many, do not know the exact details, but you can just sense that the way this has been managed, it hasn't been an easy road back. She needs the time to get feel confident to go back out there. And because it's all right when you've got, I suppose, very much controlled state occasions. And I suppose the state visit is one of those examples. This carol service is very much on her terms. When she's out and about, it's much more difficult, and I think that's how she's got to deal with that, is when she can get more into what she used to do on a regular basis.
I completely agree. I think that the royals are so conscious of what they cost, what the value for money is, the public perception of them, all of these sorts of things. So without question, they would want her to be out there, she would want to be out there. So the fact that she has not been, you're absolutely right, I think implies that it has been a much more difficult road that perhaps that we have been informed of. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that because I've seen a lot of people online, and of course online can be a bit of a cesspit, sort of implying that it's not been that difficult, or that she's, you know, other people have faced worse stuff. Believe me, you know, and I don't need to tell you this, Rupert, she'd be out there if she could be. She wants to be out there. They want her to be out there. They are very conscious of the lack of her public face at the moment.
Yes, and she does offer even the appearances we've seen this year, whether it be the Remembrance Day, Wimbledon, various other occasions. Obviously, the video came out. She did go to Southport with her husband recently, and that's how she connected with some of the families who were involved in that dreadful day, and wants to help them try and get back the love, I suppose. And that's why she's extended the invitation to those families. But it's not easy for her, because every move when she's out there is spotlighted, highlighted, sort of everyone looking to read into the body language, what exactly is going on. So it's not just the physical side and getting better. There's also the mental element of it as well, because she is in the spotlight and everyone is sort of scrutinizing. As you say, social media can be a bear pit for all and sundry, and we know that, and that's the dark side of it. But she needs and afforded the space, and that's what I think. You know, seeing her a couple of times this week. We'll probably see her at the Christmas service, I would assume, on Christmas Day, God willing. So, you know, all well, hopefully that she can continue her recovery at her own pace and not feel pressurized into doing things that might set her recovery back in whatever form that takes.
And there's a lovely story about the Princess of Wales, speaking of her love and the importance of love ahead of Christmas, because she's had a shocker of a year, really horrendous. She's talked about love in the darkest times ahead of her Christmas Carol concert. Tell us about this, Caroline.
Well, she has, but I mean, as you read, these are hugely moving words. She's written words like love, hope, empathy, light in the darkest of times. In my head, there was running a kind of series of pictures of this time last year, when we'd no idea what was going to happen to the Princess of Wales. Do you remember there was the wonderful carol concert, The Princess in Winter White? And then, of course, we had the traditional royal Christmas, the walk to Sandringham with her looking, well, glowing, beautifully turned out, a wonderful family scene. And then almost as soon as we got into the new year came the news that both the King and the Princess of Wales were unwell. At first, cancer wasn't mentioned. And then, of course, odds of millions to one, both of them were stricken by this. And both of them, of course, have undergone a year of treatment. The King's still ongoing. The Princess of Wales, of course, finished her preventative chemotherapy in September. So her words have an extra poignancy about the arm round the shoulders, support, as I said, empathy. And of course, one of the candle lighters at this year's carol concert will be Sir Chris Hoy, who also has had a cancer diagnosis. So this is a wonderful event, of course, star-studded, but it's also got a much deeper, perhaps, personal note to it this year in view of what's gone on before. So we all look forward to seeing the Princess there, and I'm sure our thoughts will be with her and her family after what they've gone through this year. And of course, the King back on duty too, recently back from a rather grueling tour to foreign parts. And of course, the way the royal family has joined together to fill the gaps in on a balcony that really has become not so much a thinned down as, well, anorexic. So going forward, let's hope there's going to be good health for all. And yes, it's going to be a fabulous concert which the world will watch.
Is she going to play herself, do you think, Caroline? Do we know? We know she's a very talented pianist herself.
Well, yes, I'm sure if she is considered up to it, the strain, the stress of it. Obviously, medical advice is sought before any of these early public appearances, but I would love to see her doing it again. And as I say, perhaps a fitting end to a grueling year, which of course encompassed the most terrible social media storm. You're talking about trial by social media. Well, of course, the Princess of Wales has been no stranger to that.
That's absolutely
with some
right.
of the conspiracy theories, yeah.
Christmas, of course, is coming for the Sandringham estate, and as ever, there's always moving parts to this story, isn't there? Whether Fergie's going to be there, whether she's in the main house, whether Andrew's going to be there this year. Certainly seems as though Harry and Meghan are not going to be there again.
They're definitely not going to be there. I think what's going to be the interesting dynamic this year is obviously the Prince and Princess of Wales. They'll probably be at Amner Hall, but obviously since last year, a lot has happened in terms of the health of various members of the royal family, the King and the Princess of Wales, and how they manage that. And what do we see of the Princess of Wales? I imagine, because this week we will see her at the state visit of the Emir of Qatar, not at the state banquet, but will be part of the, I think, greeting party tomorrow in Windsor, and also the carol service that she hosts at the end of the week at Westminster Abbey, which is then broadcast on ITV or on Christmas Eve. So we'll see her this week, but obviously in terms of what goes on at Sandringham, it may be quite a large gathering of various bits of the extended family, whether it be on Camilla's side and also on the King's side as well.
Well, yeah, I think that this cognitive dissonance that Meghan is facing is really the problem with her entire branding model. You know, she has this real disconnect between her family life and what the public actually sees. And she's trying to sell this brand of family, togetherness, Thanksgiving, jam pots, you know, all this homeware stuff, when her actual home life is falling apart. We never see her husband with her. Her kids have never seen their grandparents. She does not have a family unit that she can sell to the public. And I think it harkens to a much deeper issue as to why the Meghan and Harry brand is not working.
Yeah, I mean, it's not working when they're together. I mean, it's definitely true there's a strategy going on. Their PR advisors, Simon, have told them you're better off appearing in public apart. But that does feed into an increasing feeling that they're not often together even when they're out of the public gaze. And also, you know, going on about the importance of family and these poor ladies who are missing their own family. I mean, the hypocrisy there is off the scale. I mean, you know, she can't go on about family when she's so cruel and callous about her own family. Her father, who frankly, you know, is not a well man. He's desperate to see his kids, frankly, before he dies. Let's get that straight. Thomas Markle Jr. wants his dad to see these grandkids. Samantha Markle, Meghan won't be in the same postcode as. So she goes on about family, 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 but her family, as far as she's concerned, it seems can go to hell.
The brother did that interview with you guys 2-3 weeks ago, where he said, you know, I warned Harry not to marry her in the first place. And then he wants further down the line to kind of say, oh, let's all get together at Christmas. You've got the father saying, I will continue talking to the press and doing what I do until she agrees to meet me and let me see the kids. And then at the same time, he wants to have this rapprochement. You can't do this stuff in public. Yeah. You have to get out. You have to get behind closed doors and you have to thrash it out there.
But how about this then? She stops talking about the importance of family.
Why should she?
Because it makes her look like an Olympic-class hypocrite.
No, it doesn't.
And let's talk about Christmas. Now, the royal family, they don't want Harry and Meghan there. You must put this caveat in. It's pretty unlikely they would have gone anyway.
Exactly.
But Harry might have gone back. Definitely Harry could have gone back. As I always say, I still maintain that whatever happens, it's very unlikely that Meghan will ever set foot in Britain again. She doesn't like the Brits and the Brits don't like her, and she wants to be popular. Good luck with that, Meghan. But Harry would have gone back. But, you know, quite rightly, we understand it's being reported that the King and William, obviously very concerned about the King's health, Kate's health, and they don't trust Harry, or if Meghan's with them as a couple, not to leak the details to the media, because that's what they've done in the past.
He's not going back. Most married
Well,
men,
he's banned,
most married men wouldn't go and spend Christmas away from their wives
Maybe because they'd be spending it with the wife's family, but in this case, that's also not going to happen.
But he might have gone back for a often couples go and see their own folks, like the week before Christmas and then reunite for the actual Christmas period. He might have done that, but the point is that William, as I say, probably never wants to see him again. But certainly neither the King nor William trust Harry not to leak details to the press, because that's what he's done before. He's got this weird relationship with the media. He hates them, but he uses them.
Have you noticed how the royal men in that family have a real problem, not a problem, but there's a real situation around women. If you take the Duke of York and Wallis Simpson, even if you take our King, Prince Charles, if Princess Diana hadn't died, how would that relationship played out with the King and Queen Camilla always in the background? And how would that have gone on? And even now with Harry and Meghan, there seems to be something that stops royal duty and also women and love. It sends them all a bit crazy and spins them out.
Yeah, you're right. The royal men are crap at women. They really are.
And so just in another guise, this could have been Charles. This could have been William. This could have been Andrew. Do you know what I mean? There seems to be something, and when you can chart it through 3 generations of royals, is it maybe something about the royal family and not about the individual?
Yeah, I think you might have a point that perennially the royal guys, the blokes, have had problems with their women. You've got some viewers' questions about Meghan, right?
Martha has said, I am so tired of them using the title while they aren't even in the country and aren't completing their royal duties, especially Meghan, who has shown so much contempt for these things. What a hypocrite. Yeah, it's very true, Martha.
It's true. I mean, that Polo series that no one wants to see that comes out next month on Netflix that Harry's made, suddenly it's produced by her as well. And it says, produced by Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. If she thinks that we in Britain think that she's royal, she's got another thing coming. She's about as royal as the average dust cart.
Okay, but...
Can you imagine the Queen seeing that?
Yeah.
Like the
okay, but this is something...
Meghan, if you're watching, you're not royal. I'm posher than you.
I'm going to say something, Rupert. And I'm going to say something after I have shown you the trailer for the 5-part show, which is produced by Harry and Meghan. It's coming up on Netflix, and it is about the world of polo, and it's imaginatively called Polo.
Imagine going on a horse at 35 miles an hour with someone coming at you at full speed.
The adrenaline that goes through your body, it's addicting.
Polo is not just a sport. Polo is a lifestyle.
Whole bunch of dangerous things that can happen. It's not a motorized vehicle. It's not a car. I have a 1,200-pound animal.
Every day we have to move forward.
I'll do whatever I have to, because at the end of the day, I have to win.
Buckle up, folks. It's only going to get better from here.
When you crank it up to 11, people can't hold on.
Now, what that trailer doesn't also go on to show is like the wives and the girlfriends and the family conflicts and the sort of the wealthy but trashy side of polo. And I, on my YouTube channel and on various other platforms, have absolutely slagged off this show to high heaven, calling it self-indulgent, saying why would a 5-part show on polo be interesting? But I have to say, from the trailer and from the full 2-minute trailer on YouTube, I'm going to say I am sorry to Harry and Meghan. I am wrong, because I think it looks like it might actually be quite good. What do you think, Rupert?
Polo is incredibly niche. It will be well produced, but can people engage with the story of these multi-millionaires charging around in very sort of various country clubs around America? It's an ego-driven sport. It's a crowded market for these sports documentaries. Ever since Drive to Survive came around, every sport is looking for that way of engaging with a wider public. I just don't feel that because Harry and Meghan aren't going to be featuring it. So actually what you're ending up with, well, we certainly know they produced it from the trailer, which is as big as anything Cecil B. DeMille used to do in his films back in the day, outlining the fact that he was the producer of the film. So you certainly know that whose hand is behind it in terms of the story, but it's not Harry really going out on a limb. And a lot of those people who are focused in it, you know, they don't lack for self-confidence. Are we going to be engaged by their stories as they, you know, you hear the clip you just heard of that polo player saying, I've got to win. Well, if you take that statement and put it to any other sports documentary, you'd have exactly that same quote put there. So what's different? Polo is a very expensive sport to run. It's run by people with, you know, an ego that stretches from here to California. I just wonder whether it's going to engage enough with the wider public. You know, I am reading reports suggesting that it probably won't. But if we don't see Harry and Meghan in it, you know, it's just going to be another sports documentary.
And of course, the fact that Harry and Meghan aren't in it might well be the very thing that is seemingly making it interesting. But the longer trailer does focus on the sort of the Made in Chelsea type trash elements that I think make reality shows. And, you know, the fact that they're all dripping in money, yet you've got a father and son polo team on different teams where they're against each other. You've got a trainer who is infuriated by how good looking the player is. You've got the wives and girlfriends who are sort of trashy and dripping in Cartier, yet potentially falling out with each other. So essentially, I think if they move away from the polo element of polo and concentrate on perhaps some of the off polo antics and the trash, to me, I thought, wow, well, if they do that and it becomes a little bit more of a reality show about polo, well, those are really big. Internationally, they do very, very well. And I just wonder whether if that's their audience, it is actually going to be okay, rather than be just a boring documentary about polo.
You want the real-life rivals, don't you?
Yeah, thank you. You're absolutely correct. That's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I want.
You want real-life rivals. You want it basically to be a sort of Californian bonk buster.
Yes, I want women dripping in diamonds, Cartier and Louis Vuitton, arguing with each other whilst their very handsome guys play polo on the horses nearby. That's what I want. And if it's that, I'm on board, Rupert. You know me so well.
There are fewer than 3% of hospitals have applied for their free picture of King Charles. Just 40 out of 1,454 took up the offer of a portrait. I should say we have one here in this building. We have a lovely big picture of King Charles. You can get it for free. These hospitals not doing so. Government departments in England, 82.7% of government departments, not quite sure how you come up with that, have applied for this. Only 15% of equivalent bodies in Wales, and fewer than a third of schools applied for the framed photo of the King in a Royal Navy uniform. Just 35 out of the UK's 475 universities. What do you make of this? What do you make of these statistics? There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of enthusiasm for Charles.
Well, I have to say, I think this is largely down to the fact that the last time this happened, when photographs of a new monarch were on offer to all these institutions, was over 70 years ago, when the view of the monarchy was a very, very different one. It was seen as, well, deserving of respect, purely because of the accident of birth that put someone on the throne, an age of waving white gloves from cars. And over 70 years, there's been a huge change in the way the monarchy is viewed. It now has an almost celebrity status with a fan basis, social media rules. So this idea that you should have a photograph, and by the way, when I went to school, when dinosaurs walked the earth, we most certainly did have a photograph of the Queen, and I was very jealous because I wanted her tiara. I still do, and I haven't got it. I talk about them, but
it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time, Caroline.
You never know. But you see what I'm saying, and I think it isn't so much to do with disrespect. It's to do with different priorities.
Well, indeed. And also with the greatest respect to people who are perhaps a slight generation older than myself. You know, we all have photos now. We have newspapers when in colour, which weren't always the case, even in my lifetime. You know, not everybody can, if you want, you can get a poster very cheaply of a royal if you really, really want one.
And what about the business of the Montecito Massive? You know, because they haven't been, somebody was telling me today, they haven't actually been to Sandringham, or they haven't been here for Christmas since about 2018. It's quite a long time.
It is well, obviously, since the split and then COVID and everything, I don't think Meghan's in a desperate hurry to come back to this country. And given what some members of the royal family feel of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, goodwill to all men may not be the mantra going around Sandringham, given the way the book and the Netflix documentary. But in terms of what's coming up for them, obviously, Harry's got his Polo documentary coming out very shortly. We obviously have seen the trailer publicising the latest oeuvre going on to Netflix. But Meghan's got her own problems. Her trademark to try and get American Riviera Orchard is still going through legal challenges and problems. So they've got another 3 months. So what we see from her in terms of her cooking show and her desire to open up a lifestyle brand is causing them complications. So at the moment, returning to England is not on their agenda.
Maybe she should hire Greg Wallace for the cooking show. That would set it on fire, wouldn't it?
Would certainly be an interesting one.
Somehow.
Anyway, we'll move aside there.
Yes,
Mike.
somehow I don't see that happening, but there we are.
Kevin, you messaged me about this yesterday, this explosive new documentary that is Harry and Meghan focused. What are some of the highlights that are standing out to you? This is this documentary came out in Germany, and it's what everyone is talking about today.
It's called The Lost Prince, and it's going to go out in Germany, like on the equivalent of NBC in America or BBC here. It will be watched by millions and millions of Germans. And basically, it doesn't pull any punches. It attacks Harry and Meghan for their elitist lifestyle. It features one guy called Ben McBean, who was an Afghani, he's a British soldier, hero from Afghanistan, who flew back from Afghanistan with Harry, who of course also served out there. And Ben McBean is saying, by the way, Ben McBean lost his left arm and his right leg in Afghanistan. And Ben is saying, I don't want to listen to this prince going on about his brother having a scuffle in Kensington Palace. I don't want to hear this guy's problems. You know, we should, the rest of us have such problems as he has as a privileged member of the royal family. It also talks, this documentary, of their rather bizarre pretend royal tours of Nigeria and Colombia, where of course we get the full Meghan act. You know, I'm so philanthropic, I care so much about poverty-stricken countries and the underprivileged. And the documentary says, yeah, well, maybe next time you go on one of these tours, you don't bedeck yourself in extremely expensive designer clothes, designer label clothes. It really does attack these two. And frankly, it brings everything that people like commentators like you and me say into sharp focus. It's not just us. Everybody notices this two are a pair of hypocrites, and this documentary, I don't think it's going to be playing very well in Montecito, put it that way.
Yeah, that's true. It does seem like it's an encyclopedia of some of our biggest complaints. Before we move on, I did want to ask your opinion on this, because everything else, like you said, we've actually said probably out loud on this show. But the one thing that I took away from it was Di Davies, the former head of Royal Protection, talking about how he did feel like Prince Harry. He said at one point we knew that he had, you know, there was a number on his head, like, you are going to get this much if you you know what I'm saying. Yeah. And he says because Prince Harry talked about the Taliban and killing 25 of them in Spare, he really felt like that price remains on his head, and that he put the people around him in jeopardy when he made those comments in Spare. But he also kind of insinuates that perhaps that was Prince Harry's intention, to try to ensure that he gets that security that he's so desperate to get. Do you have a reaction to that?
Well, I do. I mean, we go back to his revelation in Spare, all the people I killed while I was in Afghanistan. Well, that breaks the sacred military code. Soldiers, veterans do not talk about who they killed. It's out of respect for the enemy and it's out of respect for themselves. When Harry boasted about the number of people he slaughtered in Afghanistan, the Taliban made it known, right, there is now a price on this guy's head. Well, fine, as Di Davis says, the former head of Royal Security here in Britain, well, you know, you want to do that to yourself, okay. It's a stupid thing to do. It's against the military code, but if you must do that, do it. But the problem with what you did here, Harry, is you brought the same threat down on all of your colleagues. So everyone who served with you now, in effect, because of that infantile boast in Spare, everyone who served with him also has a price on their head. The Taliban is after him, and it's after his colleagues, his brothers in arms that he served with in Afghanistan. Did Harry do this deliberately in order to, you know, demand that he gets armed police protection when he comes to Britain? I don't think he's that bright. I don't think he did do that deliberately, but certainly he'll use it for his own devices as he continues to fight that ludicrous battle against the British government demanding armed police protection when he comes to Britain. 2 judges have now told him, you are wasting your time. You will never, ever get armed protection from the British police unless you resume frontline royal duties. Those would be the frontline royal duties that you abrogated when you fled, when you ran away to America in Megxit all those years ago. So he's never going to get this. But yes, he'll say, oh, well, look, the Taliban are after me. You know, it's pathetic. It really is pathetic. He's just a little boy.
Yeah, it just you opened up this door yourself when you opened up your mouth, and none of us were asking how many people did you kill in Afghanistan. That was not on any of our minds. So I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. One, Jeffrey Epstein is dead, but to me, this is a story that just does not stop. Do you agree with me? And I have some questions that I want to ask you regarding how someone like Prince Andrew elevates a case like Jeffrey Epstein's. But do you think that this story is over and done with, or is there more to come when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, a lot of people want it to be over, and I think that you're right. It's not over, especially as we move into the next administration here in the U.S., the Trump administration. There's a chance, there have been promises, that there's a chance that this gets opened up to the public. Yeah. The only way that happens is if someone who doesn't care is in charge, and it's setting up to possibly be that exact scenario. Now, what's there? It's going to be names, logs, the flight logs. It's the people that were associated with him, and this is the one. Pick a person on the planet. I think he's number one that you do not want to be associated with if you are rich or famous or both.
That's a good point. So it's Kash Patel who is making these kind of promises, or are insinuating that these are some of the things he would do if he is approved by the Senate, correct? To be the new FBI. Is it director? Is that
yes,
the right title? Okay.
Director of the FBI, if he's confirmed, and that's still a huge if.
Right. I've heard that there is some issue back and forth with that, but in the build up to Trump being elected again, he did media where he said he felt like the Trump administration would release the Diddy list and would release the Jeffrey Epstein list. And the Epstein list, I heard a lot throughout the Trump campaign. J.D. Vance even mentioned it on Theo Vaughn's podcast when he said, yeah, they got to release the Epstein list. And let's start with this. Diddy, we're covering Diddy at the same time. A lot of people have asked me to make comparisons to Diddy, but in that instance, that was the superstar. Diddy is the superstar. Jeffrey Epstein was just some guy. And it's almost like the people he surrounded himself with are more, that is what makes this the biggest scandal ever, because he's not the superstar. It's this regular guy that has somehow attracted all of these power players to him. And they are
the unique ability to do, apparently. Like I do say that Diddy and Epstein, if the allegations are true about Diddy, were similar in that the MO was to attract, then blackmail, attract, and then have something on them, have the Diddy tapes, have the Epstein, the incidents, right? So they both used a strange way of almost like a Black Widow spider, to get you into their web, and then
there's also according to I haven't seen them go into this very deeply, but there was allegedly a Ghislaine Maxwell associated with Diddy too. Like he had his own Ghislaine, and I guess we'll see if she's prosecuted. We'll have to see if everything transpires in a similar way. But apparently he had a recruiter as well. When it comes to Prince Andrew, I'm going to report this much differently than you do, because I cover royals heavily. But from a crime reporter's standpoint, from an investigative journalist standpoint, no royal care in the world. How does having a name like Prince Andrew, how does that change a story like Jeffrey Epstein's? I mean, does this go from like second page of the newspaper to top billing when you have a prince attached to something so salacious?
Well, it shouldn't, right? I mean, legally, it doesn't matter, but it attracts the public's attention, and when the public wants or is listening, then prosecutors, no matter what their level, react, and it's human nature. Any high-profile case gets more attention, and it is prosecuted more vigorously. So that's what it brings to the table. But he is nothing player in the grand Epstein case, right? Epstein was having sex with minors, recruiting them with the help of Ghislaine and for money, and was able to satisfy this disgusting, insatiable, sex addiction that we see with Diddy as well, if the allegations are anywhere close to true. And that's what is the bulk of the case. The Epstein hanger-oner who shows up at the island for a little bit of the whatever, that's sort of secondary, but boy, it changes everything when it's a big name.
Especially when they see that 5 days after Polo's released, Prince William is starring in a new BBC documentary called The Earthshot Report 2024, where it's an entire documentary about his Earthshot campaign and what's been happening over the last year, all of the new innovation that they've helped to build and that they've encouraged. And he's actually in the trailer selling it. I don't take note, Prince Harry. I don't think that he is featured very much throughout it. I think the focus is actually the projects and the people, but he's certainly in that trailer selling it. And to me, it gives Earthshot credibility. It gives Prince William credibility. It makes him seem transparent, and he's holding himself accountable. And you can see that some of his actions are tangible, and that there's a genuine curiosity for this cause. Don't you think that Prince Harry could learn a thing or two from his brother and from the men in gray suits? Because that is what Netflix wanted. They were okay if Harry and Meghan wanted to be like Little Miss Charity Balls, but they wanted camera crews on them. They wanted mic packs on them. They don't care about polo.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to remember this dynamic between the two brothers, the feuding brothers, the brothers at war of the royal family. William is miles more clever than Harry. Harry's a dumbass, and so is Meghan. They're not very bright people. William is a clever guy. And first of all, I think when he commits to something, he means it. he realizes that you don't do things in the royal family, you don't do things on a token basis just to be seen, because people will put you under the microscope, they'll analyze, they will look into what you're actually doing. William knows if you're going to take on a project, you've got to take it on. And that's why I believe his Earthshot documentary, I'm told, I haven't seen it myself, but I'm told it's fascinating, it's exciting, and all through it you see William's commitment to the project. Now, we don't see Harry's commitment to anything. We don't see his commitment to the square root of damn all in anything he ever does, apart from, I'll give him some credit for the Invictus Games, although that $4 million from the German government is a very strange statistic. I'm not sure what that is all about. It's certainly
it's classic Sussex.
Yeah.
Show up, take credit.
Yeah.
That, you know, somebody else paid for their PR stunt. Someone else paid so Meghan could prance around in cute, expensive clothes and have her photo taken. Classic Sussexes. But you talk about Prince Harry's lack of commitment, and that is sort of what Richard Eden is talking about. And his story, hidden details in Harry and Meghan's new Netflix show that have convinced courtiers he wants to return to the palace. They consider Prince Harry's lack of, being featured at all, distancing himself from the polo show. They say courtiers are increasingly convinced that Harry wants to resume his old way of life when he felt like he was using his privileged position to make a difference for worthwhile causes. Kevin, I've never once, honestly, I don't feel like Prince Harry believes he's privileged. He's a perpetual victim. If he came at us the way Prince William does and says, I understand that I'm a very lucky individual, and I'm curious about I'm curious about how people have gotten to the place they are in life when it comes to being homeless. I never hear Prince Harry say that he understands that he's privileged. I still do enjoy talking about this story because I don't feel like the book is closed on it. And I do think that there is still a lot to learn. But I agree with you that Prince Andrew's chapter is closed. There's nothing else to learn there. I feel like we've learned everything we're going to learn. And you're right. You get a sense for the truth and what you get a sense for everything that happened. Despite the opposite coming out of his mouth during that interview, you kind of got an idea of, all right, you needed this guy. This guy made things fun for you. You should not have been in his sphere. You're too proud to admit that you made a mistake, and you're now dealing with the consequences. I kind of feel like the Prince Andrew stuff is done, but I do feel like we will still learn more about Jeffrey Epstein over the next few years.
And there'll be more, yeah. And let's face it, the Prince Andrew, it's so easy to evaluate because it's right and wrong. And, he is wrong, right? He was in this position, and we all know he was in this position, and any explanation by him about this just doesn't ring true to people. And it's not, there's nothing legal about it, just the public perception. And that's a killer for him. And that has put him in the place that he is now, basically hidden away, where he's paying a price for decisions made.
And I will just say, he says he is innocent of all of the allegations that could be potentially illegal. He does say he's innocent of those, but I think what we're discussing is guilt by association, and it doesn't look great.
Right.
Yeah,
it's the public's the public's determination, given the information that we have, because a lot of it's concealed, about did you do something right or wrong? Or let's face it, if we thought that Prince Andrew was wrongly accused of this and it was universal, guess what? He would be a hero, and he could come here anytime he wanted to speak, and we'd listen, and we'd be like, man, can't believe what you went through. Poor guy. We're not there yet, and I don't think we'll ever be there, but you never know.